figure we've done something right. But it wasn't just the people wearing the collars. We can't do this without support. It takes an entire kingdom to run a peerage order. And thank you all for your support, which we can see just because you're here. You've seen the food, you've gotten to it. Feel free to go get it as much as you want. I want to hear what you have to say, and I have some questions I want to ask you, and you've already seen that I talk too much. So I'm going to turn it over to the only person here who actually succeeds at telling Robin to shut up. Good Liz.
All right, I've done my thing here.
All right.
Okay.
You're live streaming.
So
For folks who can't be here.
I was asked to be a moderator. I was told to be herding cats. I have a master's in herding cats. I have a master's of education. If that's not a master's in herding cats, I don't know what is. If you have questions and you aren't comfortable saying your question, I have cards and pens and send them around. And you can write the question and I'll read off your question for mods. If you're fine with saying your own question, that's fine. But we do have cards here for people to write on. So it's up to you. I wanted it to be as comfortable for the people. I know there are people who have more questions than they might be willing to say out loud.
Did everybody hear what she said?
Okay, I have cards. If you want to write down your question, send it over, and then I'll read it to the mods for them to answer. Or if you're comfortable, just ask me your question. We've got a microphone that can go around. So it's up to you. I want you to be comfortable, but I want know how it's been to be there and go, I want to say, and not feeling comfortable to say, because you may think you don't have enough rank. If you're here, we love you. You have enough rank to speak. So, I have cards. If you'll pass them that way, and take out a pen.
I'll ask a question. What have we done right, and what have we not done that you think we need to do for you in specific and for Ansteorra in general?
Cannon should pass
I didn't even hear his question.
All right, so Robin asked, what have we done right? And what could we do better? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, does anybody want to answer that question?
I will.
So, as far as things you've done right, especially in this kingdom, traveling around the known world to other kingdoms and seeing mods elevated elsewhere, I like the way our ceremonies are. Specifically, the way here in your circle does when you do the swords. Like I was out in Aiden recently, and in the decision of whether they even want it, their version is putting the blades to the candidate's neck before they've even said yes, they'll join the order. You guys do it at the end, the brotherhood kind of thing, brother, sisterhood, fraternity. I really like that. That's really done well. When to the point, the ceremonies around the elevation, you've done right. Anyone else?
Nobody else thinks we've done anything. Well,
I guess I could say I like where the bar is. I think that you guys have done a good job of keeping it to an excellent order. I think that that's a hard thing to do. It's hard to know where the bar is when you're starting something from the beginning. Okay, for the people at home, I was saying I think they did a good job of setting where the bar is, for making sure that it is peerage quality individuals who are part of the order.
I have a qualifying question on your count. Okay. You said the bar is high enough. Is the bar clear enough for most people who are thinking about being in it to actually feel that, okay, I should be able to go before people and say, okay, I'm ready, or be encouraged? is it clear enough to the populace?
I saw it.
I saw it shake.
I would.
If you want to say something to that, please raise your hand.
I would say, in my opinion, not exactly. And if that could be clarified for all of us, we would appreciate it.
Remember, the microphone is only for the people at home. It doesn't amplify you in the room.
I meant for them. Sorry. Hopefully, I didn't blast their ear.
We still got to. You don't hear it.
No, my response was, me personally, it's not perfectly clear. I may not be the only person. So if they could clarify what you're looking for that, I would appreciate that. But I'm sure this is varied because everyone has a slightly different opinion about this.
Okay.
Loaded question.
Okay. I knew I threw it out there like that. I can tell you that the other martial peerage, okay, it's just as insane. Okay. In terms of clarity, it's as clear as mud. There are some people who are so outstanding, there's no question. Everybody and their mother believes this person should be elevated. And then there's these cases where we're looking and saying, why are you not making this person? The populace is just saying, we think it's kind of obvious. Whereas if you do talk to us, it really breaks down to a number of different factors. First and foremost, okay, prowess is fantastic. We all know we want these people to be some of the best fighters, but it's not the only standard. And because it's not, people wonder, well, what about the others? And that's where it gets massively subjective. I would say the strength that we have at this point is we have so many different ways of actually explaining what we think can work and not work, that when the Crown is actually given that information, they feel pretty good about making a decision one way or the other. I mean, even if there's somebody who is like, I think this may be shaky here. The people who we've elevated, for the most part, you're looking at like there's for the Crown's sake, there's no real question. These people are there. And most of the people are happy to have actually been extended the accolade. Okay, it'd be great if we did have a Girl Scout or Boy Scout merit badge thing where X equals I get the peers. We'll never have that. But as long as most of you are satisfied with, there's a high. It ultimately, is it the thing it's supposed to be? Are the people who are being elevated? Do we truly consider them to be the best that our kingdom has to offer? As long as most people are satisfied with that, we're fine.
So we've got actually 3 of us, I think, who are over 60 here at the moment.
Agree?
Hey, don't look at me, Mahadi. I'm not there yet.
And each of us was elevated at a different stage, both of the mod and our own fencing careers. Robin, of course, was very much one of the original exemplars we had. Mahadi was very much on top of his fighting, had just recently been made a white scarf after working on that for years. And for me, there was the decision of, I'm in my 50s. Do I want to do this? And I had some very real conversations with some very good fighters who said, yeah, but you're probably going to have to crawl over broken glass to do it. I chose to do that. I have also chosen since then to try and make sure other people don't have to actually crawl over broken glass. So my bar, varies. Miles has his hand.
There was one back here
for a while.
And then over to Miles.
Looking out.
It might not be applicable after this.
So, because I'm hiding behind somebody, something that is just underneath the surface that I know that you guys feel, something that the MoD does really well, is accountability. I can't speak to the other peerages. I just know that of all the MoDs I have met, especially in Ansteorra, they hold themselves to a standard of excellence. They hold themselves accountable. They own their choices. They are courageous, and they have a lot of integrity. And it's something that I don't know I've ever seen in the other peers, because I'm not looking at them like that. I'm looking at this one, but it's accountability, and it's incredibly important to see it at the highest level, especially for some of our lower level new fighters. So thank you for that.
All right, pass it over to Miles.
Thank you. Everybody, I just wanted to respond a little bit to the prowess comment there, because it is as clear as mud a lot of times. And the big point of it is prowess is very subjective. We like to think that it's not, that it's all about tournament points, but it really is subjective. One way to demonstrate prowess is by going out and winning every tournament that you can see. But there's going to be people walking around at any given time without collars on who can go out and win tournaments at any point in time. That is not the standard, is you don't have to win every tournament that you walk into. I think most mods will agree that we have to see you as a threat on the field, though. And that doesn't mean that you can kill me. I've voted yes for candidates that I don't think could touch me with a sword, because I think that if I screwed up, they had a chance of killing me. But, you know, me at my peak as an ex-collegiate athlete, I was in my 20s until February of this year. It was not a good bar to hold people to, that they had to hit me, so my prowess adjusted. John is very much the same mindset now with that as well. So the prowess bar can be gauged in a lot of different ways. One other way to teach it is, or to prove it, is through teaching. If you train multiple fighters up to be extremely good fighters, and they are going out and winning tournaments, and there's one common link between multiple of them, well, then your prowess is conveyed pretty well. Now, there's a lot of, that's a little controversial, but that's at least the way that I take it, that's another way to show prowess. But the key thing is, you have to be a threat to us, and if you're not a threat yourself because of physical issues or whatever, then your students that you're teaching have to be a threat to us, and there needs to be enough of them that it's very clear that you're the cause and you're attributed. So that's a little bit on prowess right there, at least from my standpoint, as I'm dripping sweat over here. So
For the record, I have won 2 tournaments in my entire SCA career. One was as a cadet, the other was a judge. Basically, the local baron chose me as his champion. That's it for my entire tourney record, 2.
So I saw a lot of people that were shaking their head no when Hadi asked the question of, you know, is that bar clear presented? So the thing too is to think about is all the things that we talk about in any circle, be it the White Scarf circle, mod circle, Pelican, they're not very tangible all the time. And winning tournaments is somewhat tangible, but that's not always the skill base. I know plenty of tournament winners that aren't mods yet. So what could we do to make that bar more easily seen is kind of my question. Like, if you're saying no, that you don't understand where the bar is at, what can we do to make that bar easier to be seen?
Okay. Tomas has had his hand up for a while. And Victoria.
I just had feedback to your question, Robin, about what you're not doing or could do better, not necessarily doing it. I've had to ask multiple nods, so it's not my point anymore. I think I've got my answer on what the answer to this question is, but it took me a long time to get the answer. So people who aren't mods, what's panache? That wasn't clear to me, and I don't think it's clear to a lot of people. And that's, by instruction, that's one of your core parts. So that's something you could do better, is letting everybody else know what the heck panache is.
We need to update those values.
Over there.
Well, I can't answer that question. That's for the mods. So I'll hand it back to you and I'll ask my question later.
I have ours.
I had another question, but I wanted his to be answered first.
That's on Robin.
All right.
Robin made those virtues. He's accountable.
I was like, he wrote those virtues. Let's go.
First of all, no, I did not make those virtues. We had a meeting of all 10 Masters of Defense. This is a while ago. And one of the things Modis wanted to do was ask what are the virtues of a Master of Defense. And we came up with that list. Panache, okay, it's a French word, and what it actually means is white plume. But it also means dash and flair, doing things that look impressive. That is why the last line of the play, Cyrano de Bergerac, it sounds so lame in English and is so wonderful in French. Because his final line is, as he's dying, I have one thing untouched, unspotted, and that is my white plume. Huh? Okay, what he's saying is mon panache. How I lived, how I expressed myself. That's panache.
It's aura for the kids. It's called aura for the kids.
Okay.
Swag.
Right vibes.
Cool. You got to be a cool person.
Oh. All right, well, that's a perfect answer to that question, so I think we can just move on. My question is to the assembled Order of Defense and wondering what you're doing today to extend your order to those who are gender minority fighters.
I was gonna say, yes.
Yep. I'm Mistress Elizabeth Hayton. I have been pushing a lot of our female fighters, not just for excellence off the field, but excellence on the field. I have been pushing our order to recognize those that might not be in that top 5% of fighters in the kingdom, but they might be that top 5% of fighters that are in a non-gender minority. I have pushed ahead and brought up so far 2 candidates that are gender minority, and I have 2 students that are gender minority. I think it has been not as hard of a fight as I thought it was going to be. I think that our order, as in general, has been very willing and acceptive.
You didn't coordinate this, guys.
As a non-gender minority mod, I listen. I've taken the time to listen to my peers, Elizabeth being one of them. I watch for things that are different. I ask questions of my gender minority peers about things I see, and listen to the explanations that I'm given that might not make sense in my upbringing. And that has helped me change a lot of my point of views on different things and look at the things in the way I think they need to be looked at, rather than with, shall we say, rose-colored or tinted glasses. So it's to me, the communication between all the peers that are assembled and listening to the ones that have that experience, have done that, and just following through with that and changing kind of how I personally look at different fighters' levels of skills and stuff like that.
Etienne and then Miles.
Okay, so most people who know me on Facebook know that I identify non-binary in my personal life. Etienne is still basically male presenting, but this is still a very new thing for me. So as a result, I don't oftentimes think of myself as a gender minority in the SCA because I've benefited from the patriarchy. That said, ever since, well, my second cadet, pretty much all of my students have always been women or femme presenting. That has been my history of teaching and training and outreach. And I like to hope that I'm good at helping them move forward, whether they advance their career that direction or not. But it's something that matters to me a lot, and given the changes that I've had lately, my perspective has changed further. So I don't know if that's good or bad.
Miles, before you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So specifically about gender minorities, one thing that I think of is that it has to go a little bit further than the fighting community as well. There's a lot of culture in the SCA that has lagged very, very far behind. In some cases, 30 or 40 years far behind, where, making comments about people's physical appearances was okay 30 years ago. It is not at all now. It's completely unacceptable. So it's on us to call that out whenever we see it occurring, so that everybody feels comfortable whenever people are around. And another thing that I personally like doing is all the science about sports and whatnot coming out lately has been pointing to training individuals as opposed to individuals as a collection of the attributes that they present outwardly. You never know what somebody's dealing with underneath the surface of things, and you have to be able and willing to listen to them when you're training them on an individual level, and you have to train them on an individual level. So all these, old tales about, these differences in the body, etc., we really have to just throw that out the window and treat people as individuals and listen to all of their concerns about their body, because every single person's body is different, regardless of gender expression, regardless of anything. So really it comes down to training people down as individuals and not having the ego to think that you can train every single individual. If you need to pass them to somebody else who has certain attributes that they deal with and they have found ways to work with them better than you do, then it is your duty to do that and to suck it up and not have the ego and realize that you can't train everybody because they're not the same way that you are. And you don't have all the solutions. And sometimes people just listen better to other people than other ones. So that's what I would say has been part of it.
I want to add in and challenge, especially our cis male fighters, to take a look at the tasks that we have primarily let fall on the women type things. There's a lot of invisible labor going on. Did you look at the list table today? We actually had a dude at the list table. Thank you, Floki. That is so unusual. It has been a multi-year challenge of mine to get people to stop calling the people running the list mistresses, because and I've had people that told me, oh yeah, I was told I shouldn't learn how to do this because it's a girl's job.
That's crazy.
And yes, I nearly lost, but there is so much invisible labor. If you look at the cadet list, if you look at the banners, the Princess T, running lists, all of these things, there's a lot of invisible labor, and we need to do a better job of spreading that equitably.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Someone back here has their hand up. Back here.
Well, let's
They
pass.
had their hand up a while ago.
So we can pass this one too.
Hi, Ansteorra here.
Thank you.
Hi, Ansteorra here, not a mod, has a question. What attributes or accomplishments in a potential candidate make y'all as an order kind of like stand up and go, okay, actually we want to keep an eye on this person? Like whether or not they have an advocate bringing them up already, what makes y'all go, hold on, we're paying attention?
There's a lot.
That's a good question.
Pass it around.
Yeah.
Huh? Somebody want to feel that?
Robin, I'll let you start.
Oh boy.
I'm going to give you first the real answer that doesn't answer anything. Look more impressive than everyone else. I mean, that's the actual answer. We're human, we see things and catch our attention. What does that take? Prowess. You know, hit me, I notice it. Hit John, I really notice it. Look impressive on the field. A good kid. A big grin as you're walking off after you've just been one-shotted. One of the things I look at cadets when I'm looking for a white scarf, and I'm making the distinction here because it's real, is how often do I see you in court holding the banners? Service, courtliness, fighting. And the fighting is not just prowess. Did I ever see you call a blow that I wasn't sure hit? Did I ever see you not call a blow that I was sure hit? Get noticed. And it's a non-answer, but it's the real answer. And it's anything that says, this is a leader in Ansteorra. We can't just be leaders for the rapier community. We are leaders for the kingdom. And are you leading the kingdom?
If I may, one thing that I would throw in there with leading the kingdom is a lot of people tend to think of it in terms of war, leading people into the field, whatever. Leadership is a lot more than that. For me, leadership, well, for me, the most important of all of those virtues that Modius and company came up with is hospitality. Is this person a good host? Can I put this person with a newcomer to the SCA and make sure and know that they're going to want to come back and keep going. And that's, I feel, for all peerages. One of the ways that I learned to do this, because it didn't come to me naturally, so I'm going to give y'all this. This is a handy trick. If you had a really good day and someone congratulates you on it, talk up someone who also had a good day who didn't get seen. You know, it's like, you know, so Matthias, good job in the tournament today. But where is, yeah, but on the other hand, you know, okay, you won, great, good. But Nessa, you had a really good run of fights today. Nice job. I was watching you marshal. All right, well, I was marshaling. Good job. Didn't that feel good? Not only that, but if people hear it, now they think of you.
I just say probably the thing that would jump out at me the most for a candidate would be someone who just fights a lot. Like if you live on the pickup field and are at every practice and you're not missing opportunities to fight, like kind of doesn't matter to me as much if you're actually good at it, because that will come if you're doing that. But that's like the kind of person, if I'm looking at events and seeing the people who are out there fighting a ton, those are the people that jump out to me to like, those are going to be the people who are going to be in this order someday.
Okay, if we're talking about this in practical terms, okay? My experience has been that when they made the first 3 members of the order consider the qualities of the 3 people who they elevated. Our qualities are supposed to be soldier, scholar, courtier. At that time, we looked at Miguel and said, consummate soldier. They looked at courtier and they said, Kale. When they looked at scholar, it was Robin. I have noticed that as we progress, every time somebody excels in an area, we can look and say, that's who they're pretty much like, okay? With one notable exception, okay? And that was Simon, who I think we made him because he was just that impressive an individual. He was, in terms of fighting, absolutely on the downslide. But in terms of what it would actually mean to be a peer in this particular order, Simon met it. That is what you should consider if you're talking about what you be looking in for yourself. Where do you stand on any of those 4 when you look at yourself? Do you see yourself as a consummate soldier? Congratulations, you're probably going to sit there and be made if you're one of the best. Are you a courtier? Where are we seeing you in terms of addressing the populace? Do you feel that you are that impressive? Are you that much of a scholar? It isn't just, am I sitting there and actually teaching fighter practices? If I'm teaching at academy, can I share the knowledge of this particular culture? And then ultimately, are you that impressive to the entire populace? And then in terms of, you know, making my kingdom better, okay, that's as close as I can come to a practical way of thinking about it. If you can actually see yourself, like I said, when I was made, I was impressed by the fact that one of my heroes, Miguel, okay, even when I didn't kill him that day, decided I was good enough to actually get a yes, okay? And I love to say I have some of the other qualities. All the other qualities, I'm glad I was made this soldier.
I would say that prowess gets you to the door. The rest of everything else gets you through that door. Are you making, like John said, are you making those excuses to be involved, or are you making excuses not to be involved? Yeah, we're looking for someone that brings all of the things above. And I look at it, yes, it is a job to do, but it's also something that you've earned. Have you earned that right to be with us? And that's what I'm looking for.
Oh, no. Okay. I have to move this into this. You have to look on that. And they tell you here, election 98 and the IMF. The Musketeers, that all my life
all I ever wanted was that. And so whatever you want. But that's what we're aiming for. That kind of life. And it was made. And what you do now is what everyone will do next year. That'll be right. And everyone's doing what you did last year.
So, something that, to piggyback off what Elizabeth said. Hi there, Veronica again. I'm just a white scarf, but something I've seen of all the mods here is Elizabeth said that this is a job, but it is a job that every single one of these mods are eager to do. They do it freely. They're happy. There's always a smile on their face. So I don't know if you guys are looking for that, but I see the joy in all of your eyes constantly. Like you guys were giggling all day. So. Yeah.
You are not just a white scarf. Yes. You are a white scarf of Ansteorra.
Sure am.
And that is why there are Wakefield people. Don't ever forget that.
I'll respond back to the original question of what impresses you a lot in seeing somebody. Now, this is not a criteria for me voting or anything like that, but this is like 100% how I know somebody's ready. It's when I'm able to see them executing the duties of a Master of Defense as set forth by Gamora and everybody that they're telling, and they're able to do it in a way that's natural to them. I know that they're 100% ready and that it's sustainable. Kind of like what Veronica was just talking about, how it feels natural for all of us. When I know somebody's ready to get here, they're doing it. It's not some concerted effort to check all the boxes.
You're doing it naturally.
It's super impressive, and they found a way with their personality and their skills and their interests. They found a way to execute in a way that doesn't make them miserable all the time. Now, there are some times when we are miserable and grumpy. I'm very grumpy a lot of the time, most of the time. But making it not impact other people is super important. So I know that I have to surround myself with people who can extricate me from a situation if I get super grumpy. John's laughing behind me. It's really true. So that did not come natural to me. And it was something that I needed to work on. And I want to be very honest about that and upfront that I'm not the most pleasant person to be around all the time. And figuring out a way to execute the duties of the office the way that they should be done within your personality is how I know that somebody is beyond ready to be a peer and that they truly are one. And that's the most impressive thing to me. Again, not required.
So, anecdote time on that. My white scarf is older than John. We've had this conversation. So I was a senior Don when the mod was made, and a lot of the early mods were sometimes a decade or more junior to me. And there was a point when I was still pushing along and plugging along, and I was talking to my wife, Beatrice, and she said, it's going to happen eventually because every time something goes wrong, they come to you. They're already treating you like one of them, so eventually they're going to get the message.
So we've been talking a lot in the last, oh, sorry.
Just to tie on to what Miles said, while I'm not a member of this illustrious order, I am a member of a peerage order, and you will not be made a peer. You will be recognized as a peer. So don't wait until that recognition happens. Be like a peer. Dress for the job you want. Dress for the job you want. It is a job. If you work in that mindset now, that will lead you in recognized.
And you're always very well dressed. I appreciate your doublet you have today. One of the things I was noticing is we've been talking a lot about the white scarf in this circle as well. And I've been wondering what the assembled Order of Defense here would say about how they've differentiated the Order of Defense from the white scarf in the last 10 years.
Ooh, fun question.
Okay. The white scarf. These are the queen's men. And that is the difference. There's a devotion level to their queen. Having been queen, and I know Elizabeth can say the same thing, there's a difference. There's
I'm just one of y'all.
yeah. Amalo as well. But there's a definite dividing line. There are people who are mods who are not queen's men. You don't have to be a queen's man to be a mod. You do have to be a don. There is that the cult of Gloriana that is the essential core, I think, of what it means to be a don in Ansteorra. I don't know about the rest of the world, but I know to be a don in Ansteorra, you've got to have that. When we were in our first raid and we went all the way out to Artemisia, and we looked and the rapier fighters were sitting outside and nobody was watching them. I was the first queen who ever sat and watched them fight. And they said, how do we be like them? I said, you have to woo your queen. You must be the queen's men if you want what Ansteorra has.
I want to explain something that many people here understand, but I want to make sure everyone does. That's not a sexist comment. We were having a discussion, what is a white scarf? And I said, we are the queen's men and the queen's ladies. And Doña Gwyneth corrected me. She said, no, we're the queen's men. The queen's ladies means something else. When we say we're the queen's men, we're including Rixon and Isildur and Elizabeth and Lizette, and we're the queen's men. I had another thing I was going to say, and I forgot what it was.
All right, I'll jump in. Hot take. I think that we have not done the greatest job of making a definition between our white scarves and our mods. And a lot of that comes down to the upbringing that we all have had. We are just starting to get into people that have started since it wasn't a required pathway to go through the white scarf to get to the mod. We have people coming in now that are making that jump without going through the white scarf. So I think we are starting to define that more. But due to our culture, our cadet culture, our student culture, our cult of Regina culture within our kingdom, we have not done the best job at separating the two historically.
Yeah, so I'd like to respond to that. The very first event that I ever attended was the announcement of the 3 premier mods. So I never knew a world where they were not mods when I started fencing. I didn't pick up a rapier until there were mods present. One thing that I've said in previous circles, because it didn't take me too long to get in the circle, was that the reason this is an issue is because the criteria for a mod is defined in corpora, and that criteria was being met by the white scarves, or most of the white scarves, the ones doing their job and took it seriously many, many years ago. That was not the case in other kingdoms. That was the case here. So really what the differentiating factor is who is still doing it now, because corpora also did not allow us to elevate the entire order of the white scarf to the order of the mod. They specifically said you cannot do that lest you be removed as proud. So what we had to do was systematically, one by one, try to make people who were deserving, still doing the job, set forward in corpora, and do it in a way that didn't make somebody extremely angry. And that is a very hard job to do, and it failed many, many years. And it continued, it failed because it was a tough decision from the beginning. You're always going to make somebody angry when you're backlogging 40 years worth of history of people who have met the criteria at some point. But I said that it was a self-correcting issue, and that every circle that we have that's a mod circle, more and more of the white scarf circle will stay seated and the people who are not sitting in there, eventually there'll only be a few that are leaving. Now, I'd say that that's pretty much the case. There's a lot of white scarf circles that we have that, 90% of the circle stays for the mod circle. 95% of the circle stays for the mod circle. That's the way that we're getting now, but it was not the case at the time. And so the prioritization of the candidates who were actively doing the job was the really hard thing at the time. And we couldn't make them all at one time. So it's hard.
That is a question that there are 40 Masters of Defense that have been made in the Kingdom of Ansteorra, me being the last, 38 of which were white scarves before they were made a mod. And if you were to ask that question on an individual basis of every single one of them, you'd get 40 different answers. To me, the basis is, one, we are the Queensmen. That is not ever going to be a requirement. I'm not going to sit in a mod circle and be like, well, is Victoria Queensman too? Because that's not what I'm looking at in that circle. Yes, a lot of the attributes are going to be the same. Service, prowess, etc. are going to be almost the same level. But my thought is that every white scarf can be a mod, in my opinion, but not every mod is going to be a white scarf.
That is a good. Hey, go ahead.
In a very real sense, we're exactly the wrong people to ask. I never have to distinguish between a white scarf and a white collar except in a circle. Do I do this because I'm a Don or because I'm a master? No. Almost everything I do at either, except attend meetings, I was doing as a cadet. Do I train people because I'm a white collar, because I'm a Don? I train people because there are people who come up and ask me to. Because at one point I was the only cadet and no Dons in the northern two-thirds of Ansteorra. My duty is my duty, and I don't care where it comes from, which makes it hard for me to answer that question. In a circle, and I'm going to give just the easy one, how I measure prowess. And this is the exact definition out of Kapoor, the equal of your prospective peers. I know that phrase. I wrote that section. I mean, mostly I cribbed it from the other peerages. But what I do is I look around. Does it feel like that person belongs here? And the difference is I'm looking at different people. That's the only difference in what I do.
I want to make sure anyone that wanted to finish up that topic. Bridget, was yours on that topic or another? Okay. Okay, because I have a different topic, but I didn't want to kill that one because that one was important. So, you've mentioned soldier. I want to hear a couple of different examples, not everyone, of course. What is your definition of what you're looking for when you say a soldier? A soldier. When you say soldier, scholar, and courtier. Because I have a very, and I want to come back and close this out because I have a very distinct impression of what is looked for. And I'm curious as to, in here, what the thoughts are when you're thinking soldier.
For me, a soldier is a well-rounded. I don't need you to kill everybody on the field. What I need to see from you is your passion for what you're doing. I fight at a good level, but I can't beat Lorenzo every time. I might get a good shot off on him, or Miles, right? Yes, it's fair. John, that's a whole different thing. I want to see you put on your armor and you show up. That's a soldier to me. I don't care if you're beating everybody on the list field. I want to see you get up every day and put on that armor and go out there and do the best that you can do. I don't care if you can beat anybody. Don't give me that. You're putting on the armor, you're showing up, you're coming out to practice, you're teaching. That's a soldier's job. To me, that's me. I don't know about the rest of them.
No, that's why I want to hear a couple of different.
I extend that just a little wider. We participate in one of the largest wars in the entire known world. Are you a person willing to actually put the general sash on, or actually take your barony or your shire and take a mob of human beings and tell go out there and do something for this kingdom? That's what a soldier does also. I recognize when somebody wants to take a leadership role in that regard. I mean, if you can take the mob and sit there and make sure our mob does really well against Trimaris's mob, or mid-row or North Shield, good Lord, North Shield. But if you can do that, that impresses me.
Evar.
So to me, I mean, there's different levels to what a soldier is. I get to take real world experience when thinking about that question, being prior service and having served in active war. The first step is you can never be a leader, and you have to be a leader to get that level of being a soldier. You can never be a leader without being a follower. You have to know how to follow to know how to lead. If you are unable to follow the commands given on the melee field or something like that, and you're doing your own thing, you're never going to be able to lead because you're not going to get that experience of why things work. And I've got to trust that you're going to follow those commands that are given to you. Even if you are Southern Regional or commander of this unit, you're always going to have somebody a little bit higher than you. Even if you're general of the Ansteorran Army, you still got to listen to the king and queen. That, to me, that's the first step to becoming a soldier and to being that is one, putting on your armor, going out there and doing things, but also being able to follow the orders and directions you've been given.
I'm going to take it back to a more historical model. One of the roles of a soldier in history was to make other soldiers, to recruit, to encourage, to teach, to train, to bring others into the fold. Whether that's cut and thrust, in the case of OSA, or someone who is in a group like Bonwick that doesn't have a whole lot of fencers, who's trying to hold things up and make sure that there are people out there taking the field. You can be a good soldier for the kingdom without necessarily being death on two legs, because you're bringing people into the game. You're bringing people into tournaments, you're bringing people to war. So that's part of it as well.
Miles.
Yeah, so for me specifically, when we're talking soldier, scholar, courtier, that to me is applicable to a white scarf, is what I see. We use it in the mod circle sometimes, but it's really carryover from the white scarves, We have assessed, or they have assessed, I was no part of it. They had assessed for many, many years people on soldier, scholar, courtier. That was their corpora definition of a white scarf before corpora definition applied to them, was soldier, scholar, courtier. In the mod, we have prowess and courtly graces, and maybe I'm splitting hairs, but I view them as slightly different. So I talked earlier about the demonstration of prowess and how you can do that, but to me, you can have courtly graces without being a courtier and being a queensman. The combination of soldier, scholar, courtier makes you a queensman, and Cult of Regina, whatever you want to call it for the gender minority terms. I call it Cult of Regina a lot, but a lot it's thrown here. But those three attributes make you Court of Regina. You can have courtly graces without being a courtier in the sense of being a white scarf. And I vote very differently in the mod circle on people's courtly graces than I do in the white scarf circle of people being a courtier. Like, I don't like tunics in my white scarf circle. You look like a peasant, Lorenzo. So it's not a courtier to me. You look like a peasant, Havar. You both look like peasants. Not not my Cult of Regina. I'm just teasing you. You look pretty. That's what I care about.
I think I agree with Etienne about the soldier for the first part is making our kingdom and maybe even rapier in the known world better. Like, I think that's what a soldier does. The other part that I think is really important is sometimes the crown asks you there's someone in a tournament that shouldn't be that far in that tournament, or they've had blow calling issues earlier on. And sometimes the crown asks you to fight that person as a buy. Sometimes you're not entered in that tournament. And that to me, that is an exercising of being a soldier, is being able to go out and win that fight. Or maybe you lose that fight, but you don't want to get drawn into the mud with the ugly fighter, and being able to do that. And then hopefully you do take out that fighter and the tournament can run smoothly onwards. I think that is I think doing that is doing the role of the soldier in the way we think of it.
I have a long memory. If you fought really well in the 70s, I probably saw it. I brought up Simon for the Order of Defense when he was in his 70s. He wasn't even fighting in Queens anymore, but I remembered when he won it in '84. I look at everything you've been, but there's one thing that I've had to explain to a couple of people very specifically. I'm not going to compare your best day with our average today. I'm going to compare your best day ever with his best day ever, his best day ever, her best day ever. I'm going to compare your best year when you were really at the top with everyone else's best year. We're not going to compare your absolute best with other people's average. We'll compare your average over many years with our average over many years. Now, what does it take to do that? Well, we get one-shotted still. I got one-shotted today more than once. That's fine. Nobody wins them all. Okay, John, but shut up. Are you a warrior? When I walk on the field, I'm going to give one example. It's not the same level as Order of Defense, but it's a perfect example. I walked on the field today against Elaine. And I walked on the field expecting to fight a youth fencer. That's no youth fencer. That is an Ansteorran warrior.
That is a youth fencer who is a Ansteorran warrior.
Okay, but the idea of youth fencer, yes, she is. She's not 18 yet.
She's allowed to be what age she is and as good as she is at the same time.
Yes, she is, but I'm not going to think of her as a youth fencer. I'm going to think of her as a warrior who can kill me.
I would challenge you to expand your thought of what a youth fighter is. If you're thinking that you're not going to think of her as a youth fighter, I think that's you have to be false. I think what you
Okay, I'm not going to back off my point, though. The fact is, what I'm trying to say is, I have to believe you're a warrior after Leon. You don't have to beat me, but I have to believe it was possible. I have to think, holy cow, make that parry.
Rick one ended up.
Oh.
So I heard some things that I've never heard before. And I think we have a bit of a culture challenge in Ansteorra in that, and it goes towards, and the reason I asked the question is because up until I asked this question, when everybody spoke of soldier, they talked about tournament prowess. But I'm saying up until I asked the question specifically, and that's why I asked it. So number one, it's good to know that that is being looked at. Number two, we have a culture problem in Ansteorra that in our war leadership and our melee leadership, in that as you advance and as you've done it, there is the concept that you retire. The opportunities are not there once you've been there and done that in the same way that they were as you were coming up. And that it gets very, very hard if that is one of your really good skill sets to say, how do I continue to express that when I've already done it all? And that's a great stitching.
I can address this to you. I was the crown that was on the throne when we found out that the MoD was going to happen. And we made the announcement that this is going to move forward. We're going to keep pushing on it. And it's going to be 2 years down the road. And it was 2 or 3 years down the road. When I made the decision that I wanted to be a MoD, I was 54 years old. And I went to these two men here. And I said, how am I ever gonna fight to the level of John Drake and Miles. How am I gonna do that? I kept showing up and I kept finding somebody that I connected with in the community. And I kept asking, how do I do it? Robin said to me, Mahadi said to me, Lizette, we remember you. I just need a spark of the old Lizette. That's what I need to see. Miles told me it. They told me that. I didn't believe in myself because I thought I'd already done all the work and these jerks have not seen me. How am I gonna do it again at 54 years old? I'm broken, I'm older, I can't keep up with Matthias. Geez, what is happening? But every day I kept showing up and I kept putting my armor on, and I kept getting beaten. And then I started getting better. And then I got better, and I got better. And Robin said to me one Tuesday night, he goes, there she is, she's back. That's who we were looking for. And it ended it for me. Keep showing up. You too.
I wanted mine to be really, really quick. I just want to say hashtag Ricks for General 2026.
Do it again. Ricks, do it again.
I'm going to kind of second what they said. Volunteer. Keep putting yourself out there. If you want the position, request the position. Ask for the position. Put yourself out there. Let it be known that you want it. And it'll happen. Talk to people. Always keep putting yourself on the field. Always keep putting yourself up for that position. And people will recognize that you want it and give you the shot.
I want to say something. I think there's nothing wrong with saying, I'm going to be a mod. I'm going to do the work. The success you're looking for is in the work you're not doing. So if you want to be a mod, say I'm going to be a mod and do the work. You can do it. Anybody can do it. I'm old, I'm slow, I'm broken, and I did it. And he's fat.
I'm fat.
He said it, not me. He said it.
I just started regular fighting at 51. Okay?
Yeah. You're like 23. Shut up.
I did it.
I can barely walk after a tournament.
Okay. I wanted to touch a little more on something that even you brought up, and kind of the.
Please.
Y'all have mentioned that there's the scholar, courtier, and soldier, and you've mentioned the queensman. When you mention a courtier versus the queensman, are there any differences that you look for, or how do y'all define that?
Okay, well, if your hand is up first, that's fine, Mr. Viking.
Yes. So I'm going to actually touch back to what Miles said a little bit ago. Scholar, courtier, those are what makes up a queensman, and a white scarf. You do not have to be a white scarf to be a master of defense. You do not have to possess those three attributes or those three things. There are different things we're going to be looking at. So it's yes, they're kind of the same, but like Master Miles said, being a courtier and being a queensman is not the same as your courtly graces at all times, right? So while we're looking at courtly graces on the mod, I'm not looking necessarily to see if this person is a courtier, right? Because not everybody is going to be, as I stated earlier, every white scarf can be a mod, but not every mod can be a white scarf. So it's like when we're talking about the mod in general, I think those three terms need to be not put aside completely, but rethought a little bit.
Courtier can be many things. In Ansteorra, it is often the court of the queen, but it can also be diplomat. It can be politician. These can sometimes seem like dirty words to the SCA because they have modern context, but being a politician is part of being a peer. If you're going to be statesman, being a politician is part of being a peer. If you're going to be a useful and worthwhile peer in the SCA, you have to know how to work with the people around you. That is courtiership as much as anything else. Being able to go around to a group of people and say, hey, I think so-and-so has been making really good progress, and this one person over here is kind of being a roadblock. But I think that if 6 or 8 of us all gang up at once in one circle, we can get them through. That is courtiership. And it's got nothing to do with being the queen's man. It's got everything to do with knowing how your fellows operate and how to conduct yourself as a civilized human being in a cooperative structure.
Elizabeth?
Yeah. I want, talking about the generalship and stuff like that. There's a bunch of jobs, there's a bunch of things that you can do either as upcoming fighters or as mods that have nothing to do with your actual prowess on the field. And being the general, I don't care how you swing a sword. You might not even touch your sword. My first Penzig, Miguel had a busted shoulder and he was general. That doesn't matter. Being Rapier 1 at Gulf Wars, I don't care if you are old and broken and have a busted hip like Orlando. You can be that. Incident marshal that I did at Gulf Wars, I don't care if you never pick up a sword. We have plenty of jobs and plenty of things that people can do to contribute to this community and contribute to what we all want to do, no matter your level of current ability with a sword on the field.
I want to touch on that real quick.
Okay.
I want to touch on that real quick. If you're a commander at Gulf Wars on the Rapier field, you are not fighting.
Oh no.
Like you're really not. You might get to throw like 4 or 5 shots per scenario, but you're not fighting as a commander. So you really don't have to be. You have to be able to observe things. That's what you need is observational skills.
You have to be willing to not throw the shot.
Yep.
You have to be willing to hold back.
Everybody else getting
Which is the hardest part of that job.
really. God, I miss
The
that.
commander does not throw the shots. The commander calls the shots. Getting back to the question of what a courtier is. Fortunately, this is one of the few areas where we don't have to make it up. There is the single book that in the 16th century throughout Europe was the absolute definition. If you want to know how to be a courtier, get Baldassare Castiglione's The Book of the Courtier. That is the absolute description of how to be a 16th century courtier. And it was accepted as such everywhere. In fact, so much so that it was a series of discussions like this about how to do something presided over by a duchess.
It's me again. We started with discussion about what you've done right in the past and what maybe you could do better. Lots of questions about how you're seeing the bar and where things are at now. My question is kind of moving forward as we evolve the community to include the edges of the swords, not just the tips. How is that being, and as a group, the mod running the community, integrating that to a cohesive peerage?
This is another question that you're going you ask all 40 of us individually, you're going to get 40 different answers. To me, what society says is that this peerage is for rapier and or cut and thrust. So if you are an outstanding, I don't know anything about cut and thrust. I'm working on getting my armor together, whatever. But sword fighting is sword fighting in the sense that sword fighting is sword fighting, right? So I can tell that somebody's a good cut and thrust fighter, right? I might not know all the moves they're doing or anything like that, but I can say, yeah, no, that person's good. But I'm going to ask my peers like Etienne and my other ones that are cut and thrust fighters and trust their opinion. But personally, this is a peerage for steel fighting, whether it's rapier field or cut and thrust field. So if you're a cut and thrust fighter only, then I'm going to look to my peers that know that thing, and I'm going to follow their lead on that. I don't care if you don't fight rapier. If you're a cut and thrust fighter, you're fighting with a sword. It's and or this. So, and I know Ansteorra culture is a little weird about that.
Let me throw something real quick.
Yeah.
Sorry. One thing that I do think we need to do better in order to make that work, make that more than lip service, is encourage and enhance CNT tournaments, have more of them, host more of them, encourage groups to have CNT championships. So that's something that I think we as an order need to do.
Yeah, the challenge with CNT is there's not as much of an opportunity to demonstrate prowess in it because there's only, 4 to 5 tournaments a year, and that's like twice as many as there was 5 or 6 years ago. There used to be like 2 a year. Yeah. Like we used to have Royal Blade once twice a year, and that was kind of it. So you did well in that, but it's hard to make someone appear if they're fighting in only 2 tournaments a year, right? And so I think that needs to be built up more, and that needs to be built up a lot by the people who want to see that happen. We also have, I think Perrin is primarily a CNT fighter, so we kind of have that, and I think Floki is at least 50% a CNT fighter. I don't know I know he's won Rapier Queen's Champion, but like I think he's probably better at CNT than he is at Rapier. So I think we have some mods who have done that with CNT. There just needs to be more opportunity, I think. So.
Yeah, I completely agree too. With people becoming CNT mods, we have to vote on them. It's in Capora and or CNT. There's no option. And one of the ways to show yourself as a true CNT mod is by making those events happen. There's a ton of white scarves, a ton of people in the Rapier community who will jump into a CNT event whenever it happens. But the fact of the matter is a lot of the people who don't primarily fight CNT run a lot of CNT stuff several times. And then 2, displaying prowess on the CNT field, even though we don't, a lot of people in our circle don't fight it. We can still gauge whether or not you have prowess by how you deal with the people who are fighters entering that's not their primary form. That tells us a lot. If we have somebody like Havar who doesn't fight CNT at all that comes in and your focus is mainly CNT and you kick his butt thoroughly, you probably know what you're doing. Perrin, I watched that man roll through all 14 members of a Royal Blade before it even started. Yeah, he's probably pretty good at CNT by just destroying people. How you do against normal, rank and file CNT fighters, that all speaks testament. And we're watching all of that stuff because we are charged by Capora to do it. So that's how you show prowess as a CNT fighter to a circle that not everybody gauges it. We all know what it takes to be a martial peer, and we can look out for and assess that, and we do. It's our mandate. Did you want to know?
As a person who loves watching CNT but doesn't really do it all that much, yes, I know that what I was using as my standard was look at the people who are doing this and consistently actually winning, who also show all the other qualities of actually being here. This is up to and including when Academy is put on and a CNT track is actually made, and I get people who can actually volunteer to instruct people in CNT. I can look directly at these people. I can actually hear when we're hearing what they're doing in their local groups to build up CNT. It's available. The path is available, and it's pretty clear for them. I know that when I evaluate them as a member of the order, that Queensman thing is off the table. I don't have to worry about it though. I put on the Shiv hat at that point and go, is this person showing all the other aspects of being a peer? To me, it's not all that difficult. Be able to sit there and actually be in the mid-range of the best of the CNT fighters, as recommended by the people who are doing it. Hey, we're good in that particular regard.
We kind of touched on it in a previous question about kind of touched on a previous question about Ansteorra specifically. We have a very long, deep, rich history with rapier fighting, and I think as a kingdom we've done a very good job of integrating rapier and armored, and I wanted to hear, it's kind of a two-sided question. We just had the first crown tournament fought with rapier. I would love to hear your thoughts on that. And then would love to hear about, as Ansteorrans, when we go to wars, how we can represent the populace, not just the mods, but I want to hear from the mods, what we can do as Ansteorran fighters to represent our kingdom and our history.
Oh. Well, President wants to go first. Sorry, Mr. Your Excellency, Mr. President.
Oh, yes. For me specifically, I have no comment on this at this time.
I think generally as a kingdom of rapier fighters, we do an excellent job, especially I can't speak for Penzic because I've never been and I may never go to Penzic, but at Golf Wars at least, Ansteorra rapier fighters are well known in a generally positive light. We're not like we're gators or anything like that. But I think we already do an excellent job as far as representing Ansteorra on the rapier field, between the general prowess and the way we behave ourselves on the field and during the melees. I heard many times before I was White Scarf that if you're an Ansteorran cadet and you really want your White Scarf, move to Atlantia. Whether that's true or not, I don't actually know, but that was a long running joke. So it's one of those things I think we're doing on that second part of the question. I think we're doing a wonderful job of that. And I forgot the first part of your question, so I'm passing to somebody else. Oh, rapier crown. I'm ready for it. Let's go.
Just a quick timeout. Does anybody write down any questions on their cards? They'd like to hand them over so we can make sure that they get answered as well. All right, great. All
right, I'll start with speaking.
I know I went to Crown. I went with several other Ansteorrans. That's how those two questions are connected.
Gotcha.
So, as for rapier crown, as a rapier fighter, I am ecstatic. As a member of the royal family, I am sad because I know how much drama that it's going to bring to our community that we haven't had to deal with. But I think even that amount of drama is adding so much to the culture that it's worthwhile.
First of all, I think Rapier Crown was. I was actually there at Rapier Crown. I think it was great, and I hope that Ansteorra. I was sad that Ansteorra didn't get to be the first to do it, and I hope we get one when the board lets us put in I hope we go forward and we try to do the experiment as well and participate in that. We ask for a variance when that opportunity is given to us. The second part about how do we represent ourselves outside of Kingdom well, I actually think sometimes Ansteorra doesn't do the best of this because I think sometimes we tend to be a little isolationist in some ways. So I think we could do a better job of going out and showing. I think Ansteorra doesn't value melees that much. So part of it is I think we are resting on laurels because we used to be the best kingdom in rapier 20, 30 years ago, and I don't know that we are anymore. And I think we could step that game up a little bit, which is something I've actually brought up over the last 5 or 6 years a few times, but so.
Okay. As speaking as a member of the royal family, if we're talking about rapier crown, I would not be bothered by it in the least if they decided we would actually use this particular style. I would live in fear of what's going to happen. Okay, now this is also my Shiv experience. I have seen in Shiv where if you're fighting Crown and that person does not want to call your shot, there's not much of an issue with kicking it up a bit. That would be my biggest fear with a rapier crown is I have touched you. It is legitimate. You're not calling it. It's time to basically make this thing stick a little bit more. That would be one of my fears. In terms of actually doing the rain, I will pray for you because as much as, okay, if you've had the experience, if you've done Crown, okay, you know what that 6-month thing is all about. I'm hoping that we do have people who are prepared because it's like trying to talk about Baron Baronet being a B&B. It sounds like a great idea. You think you know what the job is. And then when you start doing the job, it's like, what? And then by the time you're through, you're either ass or you're going, but either way, whoever wins, whoever participates, whoever wins, I am hoping they are absolutely prepared to actually deal with the same issues, which, okay, no matter how prepared you think you are, you're not.
Okay. First of all, I do not care whether we have a rapier crown or not, because we have never in the last 30 years not had a pro rapier crown. There are kingdoms where this really, really matters. This isn't one of them. I mean, oh no, it's not going to be Mahadi and Valeria or Miguel and Connell again. It'll be a rapier crown. Think for a minute. Now, how we can improve how we look at wars, John touched on one thing, and I'm going to hammer it hard. Get better. There are two things we can do. One is become better fencers. The other is do extravagant things for our queens in front of people. That's what made Ansteorra. We were the best fencers, and other queens ached wanting what Ansteorra queens had. There was a crown princess who held a feast for the White Scarves of Ansteorra to ask, how can I have what your queens get? Let's keep them that envious of our queens.
Real quick.
Oh.
Sorry, real brief. The Sable Shields will be doing a retreat ceremony at 5 o'clock. To go out the store past the bathroom where the Longship Company was. We'll be assembling there at 5 o'clock. Thank you very much. Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you, Sir Arthur.
I just want to touch on something Mahadi said is one of his worries. Having watched a lot of the live stream, and I was not able to be in person, but I watched a lot of live stream of that crown. I don't think that we're going to have that worry. Just how much honor I saw in that field, and I've watched many crown tourney on Ansteorra crown tourneys, and I've seen it where it looks like the heavy fighters are escalating those shots up sometimes. And even when I was heavy fighting, I got told there's practice shots, tournament shots, and crown level shots, and each one of those is a little bit harder. From what I saw in the live stream myself, that wasn't an issue for the East. And I have faith in the Ansteorra and rapier community that I don't think that would be an issue for us either, personally.
Not for the first. My worry is the third or the fifth or the 10th.
Possibly.
Her hand up.
Am I okay to talk? Okay. Just checking. Hi. Non-combatant. First off, if there is a rapier crown here, I just want you to know, as a member of a populace, I'm totally going to that reign. I would go to that reign. I would be there for that reign. I would support that reign. The thing about Her Excellency, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it because she's my queen, so I say her, she's my queen. So there it is. But when my queen said that she is a little bit anxious and maybe even sad about what could happen with the heavy weapons community to the light weapons, I wonder, and we were having a conversation about this morning, about maybe would it be possible, if y'all have seen some of the not great things that happened on that side, be aware of it and know it, and maybe be able to come up with some solutions to avoid that. I have faith in you. I like I said, I would go to that reign.
Yeah.
But I would like to post a question, and I would like to post a question as a non-combatant. Over the years, since I got to this kingdom from a different kingdom, I've wanted to sort of kind of maybe not get involved, because I don't know if I could do the fighting part of it, but to be supportive. And I haven't always been successful in that endeavor. And I found recently that I've kind of found a way by doing insignia for various sorts of things. And I found my path into y'all's community that direction. For someone who doesn't fight, who kind of maybe even has no desire to fight, but still wants to contribute to your community, because you guys have come to A&S stuff and helped our community, I feel like I want to give back. And I don't always know that I'm able to give back. I don't know that I've ever really been welcomed to do that. Now, I've also had really positive, oh my God, you guys. I've had lots of positive experiences with your community as well, okay? Not saying it's bad, but for someone who would like to contribute and who would like to get involved, what are some really good ways that we can go about doing that?
Okay, so first off, I was a supporter of the Ansteorra and rapier community for 20 years before I picked up a blade. And Robin will say yes, I was out there supporting. I helped run academies. I was at Queens helping with the list, water bearing, running doing all of the things in the background that needed to happen for the rapier community to do their thing. Also, and this was the best part, going to the tournaments, they were sitting in the tent with all the people that were fighting was a whole lot more entertaining than sitting in the tent with all the heavy fighters, because they talked to me and we interacted and they made me feel welcome. And the heavy fighters weren't quite as good about it because they were real focused on the list.
It's so interesting. I've had the exact same opposite experience. Maybe it's me.
No, it's not. So many years ago, I was very active in field heralding for rapier tournaments and Queen's Champion tournaments. I coordinated several Queen's Champions as herald coordinator. I knew the rapier community, and the rapier community knew me, to the point that I would get asked, "Are you fighting in Queens?" I'm like, "Have you ever seen me pick up a rapier?" No. but I had the connection through heralding, and then I stepped away from it for a while, and then I've come back as a fighter now, and I know about half the rapier community because there's so many new people. But heralding is a great inroad because you get to know everybody.
Yep. And Lizette's going to speak, but I think Lizette and I will fight for you in any tournament anytime you want.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I say there's always a list to run. There's always marshaling to do, water bearing, letting one of us fight for you as a consort. There are ways to support our community without being a fighter. If you love the controlled violence that we do on the field, you don't have to be a fighter to be a marshal. Be authorized as a marshal.
This phone was turned into us at 8. Recognize the lock screen.
Who's next?
I don't recognize that. No, I don't recognize it. I wanna add on / respond to your question. I'm one of the youth fighters that is now aged up to fight adults, and I love our rapier community as a whole. I loved it as, a youth fighter. Get involved with the youth community. Please, 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 please. Whether that be running lists for the youth fighters at Gulf Wars, heralding, become sponsoring. I had like 3 or 4 people that I would turn to at every single rose tourney, because there are youth rose tourneys, there are youth tournaments, and they're not talked about enough because we don't have enough of a youth rapier community anymore. I mean, if we look to the past, back to my brother, who is now off in Trimaris, or we look at, I believe John Jake came up through the youth program as well. We look back at the communities that we had 10 years ago, roughly, because that was 10, 15 years ago. It was so much more involved than it is now. And I'm not saying it's all for the best or all for the worst. But yeah, things have changed. There's less kids wanting to get involved, but push people to get involved with the youth rapier community.
Provide the opportunity.
Provide the opportunities for them to make it. Because ultimately, no one's going to want to do something if they aren't really given that push. They might be interested, but what's going to get them to start? How do they know that might be what's for them? So get involved with youth, whether that be water bearing, sponsors, running the lists, whatever. Becoming a youth rapier marshal, anything. Just get involved with the youth rapier community.
You mentioned that it has been easier for you to integrate with the heavy community. And as the spouse of a heavy fighter, that makes so much sense to me because you already have that in. You have that in through your significant other. So you're looking for an in with our community. And like everybody else has said, things that make it easier for us to fight. Like they've all said, water bearing, list mistressing, consort chorus. sorting for us.
Frees you up then to go and do the thing.
Yes.
But it's not necessarily that you're, yes, this is service to our community, but it's also ways that you get to hang out with the community and get to know us as individuals. We're not scary. We're all pretty chill. But the only way that you can get integrated into a community is to get to know that community, and you've got to spend time hanging out with us.
And also an example would be like facilitating socials or discussions, which unlike water bearing where you're working and may not have time to chat, that could be another way to do that. And I gotta change this one.
Hold the banners.
That's great. I love that.
Hold the banners. Hold the banners.
The
banners.
You know, the banners you can hold. Those are open for anybody to hold that is not a White Star.
Okay, y'all heard that.
Okay. One more point. Everybody who's still wearing your armor, please stand up. Everyone who's still wearing your armor, stand up. Okay. These are more complex than the average costume. We can all use Colleen seamstress. I'm telling you. That is actually one of our needs that we sometimes struggle looking for.
Okay, I got it's good to go.
So we didn't get to continue our conversation tomorrow or yesterday, this morning, whatever it was. And I didn't have coffee and yesterday to be, so I want to continue the crowd conversation. But one comment on how to get integrated in the community. Please remember that we as the regular fighters are just a bunch of nerds. So if we don't know that you want to interact with us, the chance of us interacting with you, you're very scary and successful in the FCA.
I am.
Yeah, you're a Laurel. You're a Laurel. You're a husband tonight. We don't know if you want to interact with us or not.
Is she judging my clothes? I don't know.
But I will say, you're welcome by my side at any tournament that I'm at. Like I said, I'll fight for your tournament. My lady will probably be there too. We'll do all of that stuff. We need to know that you're interested, so don't feel afraid to ask anything that's in by you. If they do, it might be more in their head, like, oh God, what do I do now? Than about you, you know? So it's not about you, like you were saying earlier.
I'm nervous.
It's not about you. It's not about you. Yeah. And so, second, I want to bring it back to the rapier crown a little bit, because I think that was important to have, but I wanted to respond to concern this morning about our community and like some toxicity coming into it. Yeah. And then you did bring up learning past previous rounds and whatnot. And I think that there is something we can do on that. However, I also think that in those very high stakes, there's a lot of power that comes with throwing that final shot and being the one standing at the end of it. I think that if mistakes could have been learned for in a way that was greater than human capacity for that toxicity, it would have been done in the many generations of very chivalrous knights that have fallen prey to that same toxicity. So I think a lot of that is human nature with mistakes in the line, just genuine mistakes that we are not impervious to. I do think we have an advantage, and I spoke about this on the Rapier Crowd panel before it was announced that Rapier was happening in the East Kingdom. We were considering putting it for variants and Coldport ourselves. We do have one distinct advantage in that at every practice that I've ever been to, whenever there's a dispute about a blow, we have a saying that is, it was very light, but I probably would have called it in the tournament. If we keep to that, I think our community will be much better about calling blows. If we forget it is very light, but I probably call it in a tournament, then we're going to be in trouble. So we need to, as peers, keep instilling that in everybody. It was light, but I call it in a tournament. Because on our view, you call lighter in a tournament, and you let your opponent call it back. That is not the case that I have a lot of times here. So just as long as we keep that, it was light, but I call it in a tournament, we'd be good.
Yeah. Going back to an earlier topic where one of the barriers to CNC mods is a lack of opportunities, what are the mods doing to provide those opportunities?
I have a.
As
He might answer it.
mod, as well as those, I
not a CNC mod. Anyways, I am doing my best to support the tournaments as I can. I am pushing people to go to them, pushing people to fight at them, pushing people not to give up on cut and thrust. I am advocating for those that do only cut and thrust as much as I possibly can. I'm not judging them on their skill in that field or their prowess. I'm looking at all the other things that I'm advocating for those things.
You know, those concrete things that are needed. Let me speak as the advocate for my apprentice who brought up this question. I have one formal student. They are primarily a CNC fighter. This is something that matters a great deal to me. Create the opportunities. There was something I did a few years ago, the tournament of Field of Mars, which was basically kind of an answer to Black Blade. It was a show up, fight, have fun, declare a quick winner, go about our business sort of thing. Have more opportunities like that. People who have landed titles, and I see two landed right in front of me who are both going to have cut and thrust champions. This is wonderful. Encourage your royal cousins or your noble cousins to do this. Heck, if you like cut and thrust, just put a tournament together. Talk to your local event. Say, hey, can we do cut and thrust? It's not like it's generally taking away a great deal from the rest of the event. And make sure that if you are in fighter support, get to know people who are cut and thrust fighters so you can support them as well. Oftentimes, rapier tournament ends and now it's time for Royal Blade or Principality Championship or whatever, and we're scrambling for marshals, we're scrambling for list ministers because everybody has given their all in Queens. That would be something actually. One last thing I would say to those who may wear crowns, have Royal Blade on a different event than please. I like the China. That was fine. Anything that gives cut and thrust a spotlight, means someone may see it for the first time and say, "Hey, I want to do that." Not an add-on. Yeah.
There was a major change in 1980. The white fencing meant on Ansteorra. And when I first joined in the 70s, there was a fencing tournament way over there by the old marshals, all the hills, everything. By the tribe, we could find dinner to the hill, but it wasn't really part of the event. Our second game queen, Lloyd and Joyce, our second queen, Joyce, who, by the way, had no use for fencing whatsoever, said, and called me up to talk about the event again. Said she wanted to have a tournament where the only fighting was fencing, and the crowd is going to watch every single bout. Now, we tend to remember this because she ended with, and I'm going to make the winner my champion. But really, the biggest change was it was a fencing event. It was a rapier event, the first one ever. And you want to help cut it off? Take it cut it off. Because it sure made a difference.
I want to speak to that too. So, not specifically what can we do to encourage rapier or cut and thrust activities. I think us as rapier peers.
Green light?
No.
We're at an hour and a half. Microphone's gonna go so long.
No.
Nope.
I just noticed that there wasn't a green light on it. So one thing I think we need to do a better job as of rapier peers, looking at all of us for rapier and or CNT peers here, is I think we can do a better job speaking to the people who are interested in CNT and encouraging that, hey, you can run something too. If you want to do something, you can speak to an autocrat at an event and try to get on the schedule. And if you need my help, I will help you do it. So I think we, as Master of Defense, that's a good point. We can do a better job empowering people to run events. And it doesn't need to be us doing it all of the time. We just need to make sure that people know that they have the power to do it for themselves and help them with the resources in order to enact it.
And introduce them to people that share that passion.
Yeah.
If you don't do it, find somebody.
Okay. I do. We touched on this earlier, so forgive me if it's a little bit repetitive. We talked about the difference between the White Scarfs and the MoDs. We talked about the difference between the White Scarfs and the MoDs, and that the White Scarfs were the Queen's men. But I've seen a lot of. I'm looking at like cadets and just the general overarching rapier community being very uneducated in the entire history of rapier and how it is in our kingdom. And as you know, the peers of rapier, you are our martial peers. I'm curious if y'all have any plans or like any ideas on how y'all might improve educating, everybody on what rapier is, what it was, and how we got where we are today.
Okay.
Now, mind you, I will tell you, she knows every one of our cadet histories better than half the cadets. She educates. Okay.
Okay. It kind of has to begin. Okay, we'd like thinking start up on this end.
Okay, I never thought I'd say this, but Monty, you gotta speak up.
Between Robin and I over here being deaf,
Take the win.
Okay, I get to put the Harold's voice on. Okay, it's got to. Okay, I kind of think it has to start with what is everybody's awareness of the Legion at this point. Okay, the Legion. Okay, the Legion Swashbucklers was my first introduction to rapier culture. After that, I pray for the cadets page. When I mean I pray for it, I know that when it comes to the cadets page, every time somebody steps up, takes a leadership role, starts driving them, boom, they're gone. And then there's this period of time where people are swanning around going whatever, and you're praying. You just pray. Will somebody please just put their hands on the wheel? Okay. So, so from that particular point, okay, as much as we would like to be able to say, hey, this is what the history actually is. Ansteorra already has our history already posted. It's there. You have to have the desire to actually check it out. Okay. And then from there, you've got to be willing to talk to the people in the community. Get everybody. Go.
So when I was coming up as a cadet, back when rocks were soft, the saying was you couldn't be a White Scarf until you'd spent X number of hours in Tyvar's living room. That's obviously not feasible. Wasn't even feasible when I was a cadet and going to Bringlod practice regularly and fighting with Tyvar. But what you're really speaking to is integration with the community. What can we do better? We can make ourselves accessible. That's not always easy because, as Miles points out, we're a bunch of nerds with social anxiety ourselves. But guess what? We're a bunch of nerds with social anxiety just like you. We've got the TISM, we've got the ADHD, we've got all of those, we've got all of those things going on. And yes, we're a club full of socially awkward human beings. If you ran into me in the workplace, you would not know that Etienne occupies this body on weekends. Plain and simple. Yeah, I'm a very different person. A lot of us are. Trust that person, is, trust that you can talk to this person in the SCA, ask questions, say, hey, how did this happen? You'll talk to me, I won't stop talking.
Robin, the case, Drew.
I was trying to go after
And then this one's also.
First of all, Etienne took one of my 2 points, which is that's really a living room issue. You learn that from each other. At an Academy of the Rapier a couple years ago, I taught a class on the history of the white scarf. 2 hours, and it wasn't really long enough. It was easier to do when it took 30 minutes. I could teach that again, but the fact is, 6 people attended it. We can teach, but only people who come to learn. So really, the best way to learn that is to come up sometime at an event and ask questions. Because, you can get me started talking and I'll talk. That works.
Robin, have you put this on Wikipedia?
No.
It is not on Wikipedia. I just looked up in the history of the Princess's Blade, nor the Cadet Manners. Neither of them are on the Ansteorra.
Light it up.
I have written it up. It's in the Ansteorra Cadet in a file when I was a cadet. And
Yes,
I got tired
ma'am.
of telling you.
Yes, ma'am, I will get that on.
She still got
She's had it for longer. Much longer.
To who? Okay. Once upon a time, I took to the heavy list on a regular basis with the hope to be a knight. And I know that at that time in the mid-realm, which is where we're from, although I'm an Ansteorra and expat, so I claim you guys. I know that in order, as a squire, I was told that in order to advance, I needed to have a full authorization card. I needed to. It wasn't required for me to fight, but if I wanted to grow my renown, I needed to be authorized in Florentine and in sword and board and in spear and in all the things, just to be able to support anyone who would want to fight me on the list in those styles. I don't know if that's the case with the mods. If you require, or not require, but ask the people that you're considering to have a full card to be able to fight case and sword and dagger and single sword and so on and so forth. And my question is, if you do that, yay, and if not, why not? And if not, do you also require them? Do you require people to, or do you encourage people to have a full authorization card in the sense of cut and thrust authorizations? And if not, why not? Sword fighting is sword fighting. And that's my question. It's just,
I'm sure it's a one authorization kingdom. So when you're authorized on a rapier field, when you're authorization route, you are authorized in every style of rapier combat. When you authorize cut and thrust, it's everything but two-handed is only a separate authorization. And then the only extra would be rapier spear. But when you authorize your authorization fight in Ansteorra as a rapier fighter, you're then authorized with buckler, cane, dagger, case, etc., all in one authorization. Cut and thrust, the only exception is a two-handed weapon.
Yeah, right. Right.
That's fair. It's 5:30. Also 5:30. It's at 5:30. And it's 4:40.
I'm not cut and thrust authorized.
Cut and thrust and rapier are two different. It's a little harder to get authorized in cut and thrust. It's a different game. It's a totally different game. You have to have heavier armor. There's a lot of that goes in it. So we don't have to ask everybody that because it's a money thing too. You have to buy all the extra equipment sometimes to get into that. So we don't make them be authorized in that. You do of course have to be authorized in rapier. OSA is authorized in rapier. They fight rapier. It's not their primary thing, but they do come out and
For the queen.
for the queen. They authorize in that, but it's not necessary.
And really, it's an accessibility thing for both sports. When I first started, I was told that I had to fight rapier before I got authorized in cut and thrust, and that I had to get that authorization. And I found rapier, and I wanted to get really, really good at it. And then, 6 years later, I went back and started focusing more on cut and thrust. But had that not been the case, then I would have started in the cut and thrust community and would have tried to pursue a mod from that standpoint. So now we do a much better job explaining that there are two separate authorizations. And if you want to start in and jump into cut and thrust, you can do that. We absolutely do require people that we consider for this order to enable CNT, even if we are not CNT practitioners ourselves. We do require people who become the order that are for CNT only to enable people to do rapier and cause them to do so. We very much want to make sure that they are encouraging people to do both disciplines and that they have the know-how to make that happen for those people. So that's kind of the answer there, is we don't tie the two together for accessibility purposes. So that way people can pursue what they're interested in, but we do have the expectation of a peer, an and or CNT peer, that you can make it happen for people and or in CNT. Now you don't have to be great at them, but you got to be able to make it happen for people.
Okay, Miles said what I was going to say on that one.
Mine was based off the last thing, so it's quick. This was a project I was wanting to start in the fall, but since there's so many of y'all in one spot, makes it easier. And it was also dependent on my current YouTube deputy is stepping down. So when the new one steps up, I'm really hoping that we can transform some of those amazing wiki pages into video series. I feel now, as KSMO and as a rapier fighter, I think the history of the White Scarf and the Order of Defense would be a great thing to start with. I would like to do it for all the paths and orders, but if that is something any of y'all are interested in, interviews, talking about it, short, long form videos, so that it's easier for the cadets. Like when I first started fighting, I was living in Florida, finishing out my degree. I watched so many YouTube videos, read all the wiki pages, because I'm like, how can I get my SCA fix in when I'm not there? So I would love to make more of those available if that is something White Scarves and mods are interested in.
I'm also going to put a plug in for our, we have a Kingdom training deputy, that if you have any classes that you would like to put online, you can reach out to the training deputy and send them their classes.
Yep.
And if you would want to work hand in hand with them.
Yes, absolutely.
Please.
I have a question for the mods here and White Scarves. How many of you have a wiki page?
I need to update it, but I have one.
It's important.
I've done my husband even a kid. You know how much
It's important. It's important.
You can keep editing it.
Yeah. This is very important as
you can sit down with Drew and a video camera, and she can record you for an hour talking about it, and then she can do it.
Hold on. It's very important. How many people are aware that the Kingdom of Ansteorra has a team of at least 30 people who are on deck to help edit your wiki page for you?
I'm aware.
How many people are aware of that? That's not nearly as many people. If you reach out to our Kingdom historian, there is a team of people who are so excited to help write it for you. All you have to do is start to reach out. I'm looking at you, and I'm looking at everybody else.
I like you a lot. You clearly do not know how long I would cost.
That's
I know we're getting near the end of this, and listening to everyone all day, one thing's come back to me again and again. I want to point it out, is we're here talking about the mod, and the word that I hear the most common is community. This is not a peerage order. It's not the guys wearing the white collars, thank you. This is the rapier community, and it is so much more than the collar or the scarf or anything like that. We have people that want to be involved. We have people here who have never picked up a sword. Hi, Michelle. We have people like Valeria who no longer fight because of various reasons. That is something that feels to me to be very special with the rapier community compared to other aspects of the SCA. And that's something I never want to lose. And that is something that has been near to dear to my heart. And I just, hearing that word, community, 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 I wanted to make sure we all heard and remembered that today.
Yeah, thank you, Nikase, because we couldn't do this without everyone here. You show up and fight.
I mean, frankly, White Scarves are the only order that I know of that gives an award to those supporters. You know, the little white scarf. I got to announce. No, is there another?
I think the Centurions have started giving.
Beautiful.
Correct me. Okay. They kind of.
Yeah.
Once again, it's secure in one of the
Yeah.
They saw how cool the little white scars were, and they
And
wanted to
I
be
will
something.
tell you, I got announced for my Pelican. I got my white scarf on the same day, and I can tell you real quick which one's more important to me.
Oh, thank you.
But don't tell the crown.
Are the Pelicans? None of us heard it.
I'm not saying we're done, but there are two things I have to do before we all go away. One of which is thank you very much for showing up. Thank you for helping celebrate the 10th anniversary of this order. Secondly, everybody turn to the cooks and say thank you. Lord Hakon, you and your crew have done great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please finish the mandate. I want to take it home.
Thank you very much.
Master Rabbit, thank you.
Thank you, Duchess Valeria, for narrating, moderating. Thank y'all.
All right. So at this point, let me do a wind down of the live stream. We're gonna wind
So I
this
think
down
that's it
and
officially.
retreat
We're gonna
to-
hang around, answer some more questions, but thank you guys for coming.
Thanks, everybody. Jeez, thank you.